You're ready for a comeback. And with Purdue Global, you can do more than take classes. You can take charge of your story, of your career, of your life. Earn a degree you can be proud of and get an education employers respect. It's time, your time, not just to go back to school, but to come back and move forward with Purdue Global, Purdue's online university for working adults. Start your comeback at purdueglobal.edu.
From the Delta Sky Club,
welcome back, Miss Klein,
to the Jet Bridge, Delta Airlines relies on 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to power operations and serve customers faster. Together, we're putting 5G into the hands of ground staff so they can better assist on-the-go travelers with real-time information throughout the airport. This is elevating customer experience. This is Delta Airlines with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Hello. From Wonder Media Network, I'm Jenny Kaplan, and this is Womanica. This month, we're talking about go-getters, women who purposefully, or in some cases accidentally, acquired life-changing wealth, good fortune, or influence. A 1950s housewife sits on her couch reading a book. It's a book she hides from her husband and children. In the stillness of her house, she turns the pages and feels something she's never felt before. Seen. The book is about queer love, and it's the first time she's seen feelings like hers, the one she's tried to ignore, openly acknowledged. The book's author, a housewife herself, was a leading voice in the golden era of lesbian pulp fiction. Please welcome today's Womanican, Anne Bannon. Anne Weldy was born in Illinois in 1932. Her mother remarried twice. One of Anne's stepfathers was a pianist, and the family often hosted jazz recitals at home. No matter the size of the gathering, Anne carefully watched people, their mannerisms, patterns of speech, and idiosyncrasies. Little did Anne know then that these observations would be the inspiration for many characters in her books. This habit only deepened when she attended college in 1950. At the University of Illinois, Anne joined a sorority. As a freshman, she roomed with one of her older sorority sisters, who she later described as the prettiest I had ever seen. She wasn't alone in thinking that. Another sorority sister did not hide her feelings for the senior, who was in fact straight. Anne herself would feel a bolt of electricity when she ran into another friend in the communal bathrooms. Anne wasn't ready to act on her feelings just yet. When she graduated from college with a degree in French literature, she followed the status quo and married a man, an engineer who was 13 years her senior. Being queer in the 1950s was taboo, and books on these topics sold like hotcakes. So Anne, now a housewife in Philadelphia and unsure how to process her sexuality, purchased lesbian pulp fiction paperbacks by the handful at her local drugstore, despite the embarrassment. She scurried home and devoured these books. The book that sparked a new flame inside of her was Spring Fire, a lesbian pulp fiction bestseller. As she turned page after page, Anne read about two sorority sisters having an affair. She was barely out of college at the time herself. So Anne poured her feelings onto the page and wrote her first novel. Its main plot was a heterosexual college romance with a lesbian subplot. Looking for guidance, Anne sent a letter to the author of Spring Fire, Vin Packer, a pen name for Mary Jane Meeker. Not only was Mary Jane a successful lesbian pulp fiction writer, she also worked at Gold Medal Books. Surprisingly, Mary Jane replied to Anne, and Anne decided to send Mary Jane some writing samples. Mary Jane offered to set up a meeting with her editor and invited Anne to come to New York. The night before the meeting, Mary Jane took Anne out on the town. They headed to the East Coast queer mecca, Greenwich Village. To Anne, this was Emerald City, Wonderland, and Brigadoon combined. Together, they walked through the winding city streets and watched queer couples openly embrace each other. They slipped into windowless, dingy queer bars filled with smoke, some likely run by the mafia. and Anne couldn't have been happier. But fear curbed her full excitement. Gay bars were often raided by the police, and openly queer people were frequently arrested. Jail time could ruin her marriage, threaten her job, and destroy her social life. But those risks didn't stop Anne from pursuing her writing. The next morning, Anne brought her giant manuscript to the Manhattan office. The editor, Dick Carroll, read the whole thing pretty quickly. When he was done, he cocked his head up and said, "This is not a very good book, but there is a good story in it. Go home, cut it in half, and tell the story of the two young women." During the next few months, as Anne updated her manuscript, she took frequent visits to New York and met up with Mary Jane. Mary Jane gave Anne more than just writing tips. They had a brief love affair. On one of those trips, Anne returned with an updated manuscript. When Dick read it this time, he published it. Anne did use a different last name, Bannon, for some anonymity. Her first book, Odd Girl Out, became the second highest-selling original paperback of 1957. Riding the wave of success, Anne published 4 more books in the series within the next 5 years. Not all of her characters were plucked from her real life. Some came from her wildest fantasies. Her most beloved character, Bebo Brinker, was what she called the butch of my dreams. Letters flooded Anne's mailbox from readers thanking her for telling these stories and confessing their own feelings and woes. Anne always tried to respond. Though Anne had an attentive readership, after 5 years she put down the pen and returned to academia. After receiving her master's and doctorate in linguistics, she became a professor and then associate dean at California State University in Sacramento. Though her writing days were behind her, the novels were frequently rediscovered and republished over the decades. Anne continued to keep a low profile, though students and colleagues would let on they knew who she was. In the early 1980s, Anne's marriage to her husband ended. After retiring in the 1990s, she had time to lecture around the country. She finally got to connect with her loyal readers face-to-face. By the turn of the 21st century, her books became an off-Broadway play, which Lily Tomlin executive produced. Looking back at her career, Anne has said she's happy that she was able to keep thousands of women company. She told an interviewer she's proud that, quote, "We built a bridge to isolated, frightened women and told them they were not alone." She still lives in Sacramento and is 92 years old. All month, we've been talking about go-getters. For more information, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Womanica Podcast. Special thanks to Liz Kaplan, my favorite sister and co-creator. Tune in tomorrow for a brand new theme. Talk to you then.
Before there was internet fraud and phone scams, there were always swindlers. Female swindlers too. Discover the stories of women from the past who not only survived but thrived as con artists and thieves. How did they use their feminine characteristics to swindle in a world where men made the rules? Join me, Lucy Worsley, historian and author, and my all-female team in Lady Swindlers, wherever you get your podcasts.